Ladies and gentlemen, it looks like Tshwane has a new mayor. And I've got to ask you the question, why is it that the ANC always appears to be accused of corruption? All this and more in today's show. But before I get on to the main show, yet again, can I ask you, if you can, please subscribe to the channel. And if you want to support the work that I do here, you're welcome to buy me a coffee. The link is in the description box below. On to the first story. And that is Tshwane has a new mayor. So before the actual election of the mayor, the ANC did a press conference. During the press conference, they basically said that they were concerned about the Metro's finances and that the argument put forward by the DA of you either elect Brink or we have no deal was really unacceptable, was never going to work. And I did cover that yesterday in a video as to why, to a degree, I actually agree with that. What's very interesting is that the ANC said that ActionSA and the ANC have huge respect for each other. Now, I, for one, actually interviewed Herman Mashaba prior to the elections. Yeah, and there was no respect there. He did not respect the ANC. So this must be a new thing. In any case, Herman Mashaba actually had an opportunity to talk at the press conference, and he said that prior to the election there had been many insults hurled. Now that line actually is far more important than you might think, because Panyaza was summoned to the ANC to ask why he was making anti-GNU comments. During that interview with the ANC, which Fikile Mbalula described as political engagements, he did say, well, the DA keep calling us thugs and mafia bosses and corrupt. I mean, how do you really want us to deal with that? They keep swearing at us. They keep saying negative things about us. Are we meant to just be like, yeah, they're our friends? This is actually a good point. Many people say that the ANC aren't playing ball with the DA in government. But many people predicted that the DA would find it difficult, in some instances, to actually act like a governing party and not the official opposition. Now, the official opposition can say these lines, but when these guys are your friends, yeah, you need to be careful what you say about them. And this is a good example of it. It's not to say that I'm actually a fan of Mr. Lesufi, because I'm not. And why is it that I'm not a fan? Well, because he's a communist. And I'll discuss that a little bit further in the video. So as all the council members went into the council to vote on their new mayor, 23 EFF members didn't bother to pitch. And ultimately, there were only actual two nominations, being ActionSA and the DA. The ActionSA candidate said that if she was elected as mayor of Tshwane, she would be ditching her high heels for boots, because that's what she wants to do. And again, I did a video on this around the shameless politicking that she had done on social media to pretend that she had basically tarred a road. We all know she didn't. But in any case, the voting conducted, and off and away it went, and yeah, Brink lost. So he got 86 votes, and the ANC coalition got 122. So ActionSA's deputy mayor is now the mayor of Tshwane. Interestingly enough, afterwards, everybody has the usual thing they can do, where they can actually address the mayor and say, congratulations. And ACDP said that they wanted to personally thank the ANC for looking past their own party and electing a mayor from a party that basically wasn't theirs. Very interesting comments, because ActionSA has basically made it very clear that they were never going to side with anybody else but the ANC, and they would only support the ANC if the ANC nominated their deputy mayor for mayor. So that in itself was a degree of brinksmanship. It wasn't just the DA doing this, but it would appear that ActionSA is still won. So for one, we'll say, okay, well, all's fair and fair in an election. ActionSA has now won. Let's see what they can actually do. There's one request I would have, though. And that is, can someone please take Herman Mashaba's social media away from him? Maybe that way he can actually reform some of his image and not constantly come across like a really anti-white racist. But anyway, that's my view on that topic. You can let me know what you think in the comment section below. Now on to the next topic, and that is Leon Schreiber has gazetted changes to the visa regime. The idea behind this was that we're basically trying to attract skill back to South Africa. We all know that South Africa experienced a brain drain a number of years ago, and we do require skilled workers, many of whom actually want to live here and contribute to the economy, sometimes not really contribute, just live here. And these individuals are quite often stopped because it's nigh on impossible for them to actually clear the visa requirements. And I'm sure, no doubt, we will see many of those comments in the comment section. In any case, Leon Schreiber has introduced two new visas. The first is a remote workers visa, which is basically a high net worth individual that gets to live and stay in South Africa. They can't really work here, but they pay VAT on all the goods in that they consume. This in itself is expected to generate 7 jobs per high net worth individual that comes here because of their spending habits. And that's probably true. The points-based system, however, is a little bit more interesting because it's basically an adoption of systems used in places like Australia. And what it effectively aims to do is take out the corruption, the politicking that goes on with immigration visas. Now, if you hit the points, get the visa. This is meant to actually make the whole visa process more efficient and more transparent, and allow many individuals who want to come to South Africa through visa requirements actually a lot easier. And we shall see if it actually produces the results that Leon Schreiber hopes that it will. And on to the main news story, and that is, why is it that the ANC constantly appears to have problems with corruption? The first is an allegation that Paul Mashatile is under investigation on 3 accounts. The first is that he bought a house in Cape Town for 28 million. Second is his kids seem to constantly keep getting government tenders or contracts. And the third is around the SIU probe into his potential lifestyle. Many individuals note his lavish lifestyle that he tends to live and ask the relevant question, where's the money come from? Because you're just a politician. No production of any factories, nothing like that. No business interests. Politician. So where's the money coming from? Now, interestingly enough, Paul Mashatile actually collapsed a day after the SIU said that they would be conducting an investigation into Paul, following various whistleblower statements and forms of report, forensic reports. Paul Mashatile's spokesperson said this wasn't due to stress, it was due to the heat. He collapsed in Limpopo at a speaking event and it was just really hot there, over 30 degrees. So yeah, maybe that's true. I don't usually collapse in 30 degrees. I don't know. Very stressful being a politician. So I think probably a mixture of heat and stress. Now, interestingly enough, this actually goes a little bit further to Panyaza Lesufi, because Lesufi is in the spotlight because apparently he canned some investigations into corruption and forms of criminal investigations occurring against members of the Department of Social Development. AfriForum is pursuing a private prosecution case against corruption that had been dropped following some forensic reports, which had shown that money due for the Social Development Fund, which would be allocated to NGOs for worthy causes, such as food banks and school uniforms, were actually sent to these entities, but were basically just corrupted. In other words, they were sent to people for corrupt activities. Never actually did anything around the food bank or the school uniforms. Apparently, upon the initial investigations, 13 individuals were suspended. They were going to go before disciplinaries, potentially be fired, and then referred for criminal investigations. But Panyaza, when he actually got the report, decided, don't want to pursue these. And the actual law firm contracted to fire these individuals was basically canned. Now, AfriForum's private prosecution unit basically says that this was an attempt by Panyaza to cover up fraud. And Panyaza, who holds himself out to actually be anti-fraud and anti-corruption, is participating in it indirectly by not exposing the individuals that have been fingered as committing fraud and corruption. Now, AfriForum goes a little bit further and says there may be a reason for this, and that is ultimately when these investigations occur, they ultimately highlight who the beneficial person is who's actually going to benefit from the corruption. In this instance, could be Panyaza. Now, I find this all rather interesting, you see, because Panyaza is actually a protected individual in Gauteng. He's also a communist. And it was interesting that during the whole debacle, when he went before the top 7 of the ANC NEC to ask why he was disputing the whole GNU and bringing it into disrepute, he was actually wearing a communist t-shirt. And more interestingly enough, Solly, the head of the Communist Party, basically came out and said, "Don't you dare touch him. He's our boy. We have trust in him." And it does appear that it might just be the communists' last hope in having some form of relevance in the current government. So what does this actually mean? Well, if you actually think about it, here we have 2 of the highest individuals in the ANC, Paul Mashatile and Panyaza, both fingered in potential corruption. I say alleged and fingered because we don't actually know. Remember, both of these people have been referred for prosecution. But let's be honest, they would not be the last. We know of numerous high-level individuals in the ANC that have made their fortunes through being in politics, and that these individuals ultimately may or may not have committed corruption. And so to that end, it does appear like the ANC constantly appears to have this problem. However, in typical fashion, you can imagine what the rhetoric to this will be. Paul Mashatile is effectively supposed to be the replacement for Cyril Ramaphosa when he decides to leave office, and Panyaza Lesufi, is a potential upstart in politics, with his next positions potentially being that of either Secretary General, Deputy President, possibly even President, if he plays his cards right. President of the RET faction that we assured doesn't exist, even though that's what he represents. So it's very curious to see whether or not these individuals will be protected, being the next upstarts in the party, or whether or not they'll actually be prosecuted. They will say, we're just being politically targeted because we're upstart, we have a future. And the others will say, forensic reports, data, statistics, crime, corruption, go to jail. We all know how this works. We've seen it numerous times. But still, this is just my comments. You can let me know what you think in the comment section below. With that being said, I don't really have anything else for today. Thank you for joining me today, and see you tomorrow. Bye.